Okay,
One
Yeah.
moment, it's loading.
oh, it's still loading. Okay.
We're live.
Alrighty. Thank you, Nikita.
Yep. You're welcome.
Welcome to the March meeting of the Audit, Finance, and Budget Committee of the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority. I will first call the roll of the committee members present. Vice Chair Jurcek? Jeanette, you're muted. Since I can see you, I'm going to assume you're here. And myself, Secretary Floss. We have a quorum and we may begin with the first order of business, which is approval of the minutes from the October 5th, 2023 meeting. Jeanette, may I have a motion?
As moved.
Great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. The minutes are approved. Our next action is to review the BFSA's preliminary 2024-2025 budget and related four-year financial plan, and to authorize its posting for public comment. We are not approving the budget at this time, but rather are approving the document to be posted for public review and comment. This document will be posted on the BFSA website and provided to all city public libraries for public posting. Any public comments received on the budget will be forwarded to this committee. The preliminary budget is provided under tab 1 of your board book, along with the accompanying draft resolution. Jeanette, would you provide some comments?
There we go.
There you go.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. First, I would like to express my gratitude to our Controller Claire Waldron for putting together such a well thought out document. The draft budget as presented is fiscally responsible. It was carefully constructed with a focus on keeping costs in the organization as low as possible. We were successful in maintaining a budget with a modest overall increase of 2.7%. The challenges that we had with this budget included projected increases in health insurance costs and projected pension contributions, which are a reflection of the overall economic conditions and inflation over the last several years. We were able to manage these increases through the continued savings that we've achieved by moving our physical offices to a smaller space. And the space also has technology available in shared spaces that allows us to save costs and better manage meeting costs. So that is my high level comments, and I will take any questions on the budget that you may have.
Can you guys hear me? Are we
Yes,
in a
indeed.
committee meeting?
We're
Yes,
in the
we
committee
are.
meeting, Andy, but you're more than welcome to ask any questions you want.
Okay, so I guess the one, I don't know if this is out of school or not, but looking at page 8 of the analysis that deals with the forecast revenues and expenditures,
Andy?
Andy,
what?
we're talking about the BFSA budget now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we're talking about there's a 3% salary increase based that there isn't any background information as to what criteria was used to determine that in the analysis. I'm going to page 8 where it says forecasted 2024 revenues and expenditures. And if you go down that list, that chart, you go down the list, it talks about revenues, sales tax, state aid, investment income, and then it talks about salaries, okay? That they're budgeting 3% increases for 24-25 with 3% annually thereafter. But then when you go to the next page, when it lists all the separate expenditure items, it starts with health insurance, pension, parking, communication, but it leaves out salaries. And all I wanted to ask is, what is the salary increases tied to? Is that tied to the city's white collar proposed salary increases, or is it the management increases? I was just curious.
Okay, so our salaries are not tied to anything in particular. However, we do review contractual increases that were given more recently or in effect for the 2024-25 fiscal year. Now, the white collar contract, it expires at the end of this year. But on July 1st of 24, they were provided a 3% increase. Just as a general comment, our raises have typically been lower than what's been provided to the city of Buffalo, mostly due to the fact that we don't have contracts, so we don't adjust our salaries for retroactive adjustments when we're held at zeros for a number of years.
No, I was just curious as to, well,
understanding.
first of all, it was left out of the analysis, but I was just curious as to, how are our salaries tied to what some of the other, like, labor contracts are, and I didn't know if there was some sort of a guideline that we mimic or that our salaries mimic what is being proposed or what is being currently provided under the, like, white-collar union for the city or something.
Right. And that is definitely typically what we look at is the white collar, or if there's a shift from white collar for exempts at the city, we'll take that into consideration as well. And as far as the page 8 that you're referring to, the forecasted revenues and expenditures, that dialogue is if there's any significant discrepancies or differences from what was budgeted. The forecast is included on our Schedule 6, and salaries are forecasted to be consistent with the budget at that point.
Okay.
Just to give clarity on what that is.
All right, so I'm assuming that the 3% salary increases takes effect July 1?
It would.
Okay.
Are
That's
there
all I
any-
had.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Are there any other questions, Jeanette?
None here.
Okay. If there are any additional questions, either from the public or any of the directors, they can be sent to the executive director, Jeanette Robe, to be put into into the budget. Approval of the budget will be on June's agenda. May I have a motion to authorize staff to post the preliminary 2024-2025 budget and related four-year financial plan on the BFSA website and in city public libraries?
As moved.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Jeanette, and I guess the only other thing that I would say is if you did need to make any small adjustments, that the motion would be for you to go ahead and make those small adjustments without having to come back if you wanted to make any adjustments before they were posted.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. The next item of business is to approve Lunsman and McCormick as the auditors for the BFSA for the current fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. Lunsman and McCormick have provided excellent service over the last several years. There is a fee increase, though, of $1,300 over last year. Lunsman and McCormick were originally contracted pursuant to a request for proposals, and this action will extend the contract for an additional year. A copy of the engagement letter and the accompanying draft resolution has been provided under tab 1 of your board book. May I have a motion to approve the engagement of the accounting firm Lunsman and McCormick LLP to perform the BFSA's audit for the year ending June 30th, 2024? Okay, so moved and seconded.
Seconded.
Is there any discussion? Jeanette, would you like to say anything at this point?
I will add that Claire Waldron and myself, we had a pretty thorough conversation with Sarah Dayton over at Lumsden and McCormick to talk about the salary increases and what's expected in the future. The world of municipal audits has changed. What used to be a summertime off hour job for them has translated into something that's more time intensive for them. And there are more and more GASBs issued every single year. So it really requires almost a full year specialization by auditors now. So regardless, moving forward, she anticipates, she couldn't promise, but she anticipates increases closer to 5% annually.
Whoa. Excuse me.
Well, will that be a longer term contract, Jadon? Usually these contracts last about 3 years. And I'm sure obviously you're going to put that out to bid.
We can put this out to bid, yes.
I mean, after this 1 year contract is over with.
Okay. Are
That's reasonable, absolutely.
there any other comments? Okay. So all those in favor of the motion to engage Lunsman and McCormick, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that passes. The next item of business is the annual reporting of the 2024 for the 2024 year to this committee from the Internal Controls Officer regarding testing and related findings. The Internal Controls Officer is a statutory required appointment. Internal control memos are included under tab 1 of your board book. Internal Controls Officer Bryce Link will share a report with us now.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the Audit, Finance, and Budget Committee this afternoon. Not that I need the ability to share my screen for this presentation, but I just want to put it out there that currently I'm unable to share screen. So when we get to the full meeting at 1 o'clock, we'll need to be able to do that. Nathan, I don't know if you have ability to share screen at this time. So I apologize for that aside. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the board. The 2 areas that we reviewed for the internal controls reporting was the financial reporting as well as the asset purchase and control. With BFSA being an agency of 5 staff, there's quite a bit of oversight occurring on all transactions. Segregation of duties was reviewed and demonstrated that there are controls in place in regards to the BFSA operations, and these controls are functioning. During the course of my review, there were no material findings. Additional focus was placed on looking at areas where potential fraud could occur. So under tab 1, the first report you'd have available for you is a review of financial reporting. The review included testing fiscal year 22-23 in the first 6 months of fiscal year 23-24. Testing included the review of the resolutions authorizing the AFB committee, the resolution and the engagement letter of the external auditor, as well as the quarterly reports issued by the BFSA comptroller. In addition, we reviewed the BFSA budget and the 4-year financial plan, as well as the year-end financial statements. A high-level analysis and review of sample transactions was also conducted in regards to the year-end financial statements. Looking for anomalies, no such anomalies were identified. As was stated earlier, segregation of duty is very important here. The financial reporting process includes the comptroller, executive director, and the treasurer to a lesser extent. There is a clear segregation of these duties. So for the most part, the comptroller is responsible for preparing all supporting and backup material, as well as the key documents that were reviewed. The executive director is responsible for reviewing those entries, specifically journal entries, as well as collaborating with the comptroller, and putting together the budget And then the treasurer is responsible for reviewing vendor and operational transfer requests, as well as signing off checks throughout the year. So it's more of an operations day-to-day than really participating in the document preparation for the quarterlies and the year end. It was identified there's a standardized process that we follow throughout the year. As was noted earlier, as we just saw, the AFB committee reviews and approves the contract with the external auditor. So we just approved that for the upcoming year. Fraud. It was determined the potential to commit fraud is a low possible risk, but is unlikely to occur due to the segregation of duties. Types of fraud that could occur include are not limited to filing false records or material misstatements concerning one of the aforementioned records. Under the current process, comptroller is the primary preparer of these rec schedules for the external auditor. Prior to submitting the material to the auditors, the executive director reviews it for accuracy, and the comptroller makes the initial entries in the accounting software, but the executive director also has the final review to post the entries. Findings, as I stated initially, there are no material findings at this time. It is recommended that the BFSA maintains the appropriate records of all transactions as we currently do and file them in a timely manner and review them, maintaining the segregation of duties. In addition, as noted, the BFSA, in an effort to promote transparency and good governance, posts the following operational documents online: BFSA mission statement, resolutions authorizing the AFB committee and the external auditor, year-end independent audit reports, the annual disclosure report, as well as minutes and resolutions of all audit, finance, and budget committee meetings, as well as the BFSA budget and the 4-year financial plan. So that review focused on all the documents, internal documents for BFSA operation that the AFB committee reviews throughout the year. Second area that was tested was asset acquisition and control. This area was a little more difficult as BFSA really doesn't procure many assets throughout the year. So this one we focused on fiscal year 22-23. The area I tested, or the materials I tested, was really the procurement of 5 chairs and 5 office desks for staff use after our move from the Market Arcade over to the Elka Square building. Testing consisted of full review of the process undertaking and procuring the new furniture, primarily comparing comparable chairs and desks listed on the New York State surplus website, as well as furniture available through multiple MWBEs and SDVOBs. A written request or RFP was not necessary and was not issued because the minimum threshold of an RFP is $25,000 per the BFSA procurement guidelines. And we were going nowhere near that amount for the procurement of chairs and desks. In total, 12 different vendors were contracted and reviewed, including 6 MWBE firms, 2 SDVO firms, 2 MBE firms, and 1 MWBE firm and 1 non-certified firm. It was determined that a lot of these larger firms really wouldn't fit the needs of BFSA because we were looking for a small amount, and a lot of them provided build-out services, and it wasn't really what BFSA wanted or needed. And then even using the New York State surplus led to its own issues in that there was that the desk and chairs were not uniformed and not necessarily in any better condition than the desk that the BFSA had prior to the move. So at least in the procurement of this asset and other assets that we've tested in the past, all materials reviewed had the appropriate supporting documentation and necessary approvals for the purchase and delivery of the office furniture. The chairs have been recorded on the depreciation schedule for reporting purposes, which is maintained in Excel. The desks were not included in the depreciation schedule as they were expensed at the cost of $400. Each desk was only $80, so there was a minimal impact there. Also, as part of this internal control testing, in inventory review of BFSA assets and review of the depreciation schedule was completed. Currently, BFSA maintains both the depreciation schedule and the BFSA assets in Excel. This is conducted annually, usually led by the comptroller on this, just to make sure we have all of our assets tagged and readily available in the office. The depreciation policy identifies the life cycle of the BFSA assets to be 5 years with a half-year convention. By keeping track of the projected life cycle of each asset, BFSA can plan accordingly for future procurements, as we see with the budget process and the 4-year plan. As I stated initially, there were no material findings at this time. In addition, the BFSA, in an effort to promote transparency, posts the following operational documents online: BFSA procurement guidelines, BFSA personnel and real property reports, the BFSA property disposal guideline, as well as the MWBE and SDVOB utilization tables. At this time, that was the summary of the 2 areas I tested for internal controls this year. Do the directors have any questions at this point?
Yeah, Bryce, I have a question. Okay, in as much as this is an internal document and we are an agency of the state of New York, are we required to file this with like the state comptroller's office or the legislature? I mean, it's right now it's just it's between us and what, our outside accounting firm. But I was just wondering whether or not we're required to file this document at a higher level.
Director Sanfilippo, no, we are not required to file this at a higher level. This is more of an internal operations for AFB and the full board once they review it. We are required as part of the annual report to state that we have an internal control function, and that's covered in, as I said, in our annual report each year. So I put together a 5-year testing schedule. So each year I'm testing new areas in the process. I'm trying to identify and utilize industry norms and standards, but with our office being so small and a lot of our transactions being minimal,
well, essentially here we're investigating ourselves. I mean, we don't have any outside agency or body looking at this to make a determination whether we're we don't know whether or not, because it's internal, whether or not there is fraud being committed.
We largely rely on our external audit with our auditors for the fraud review. But as far as the internal review being conducted, it is for public authorities. It's a recommendation by the authority budget office that a internal control department be created and funded, or at least it be considered to be created and funded. That was considered.
But you understand what I'm saying, though, don't you?
I think.
No, I do. I'm just letting you know what the
I mean, it really does open the door for complicitness.
Well, I think it is rather simply a demonstration that we have a proper process in place, and we have just done a run through. It is a demonstration that we are complying. That is to say, process is in place. The evidence, the content is irrelevant in this case. We simply have to demonstrate to the.
But what happens if we don't get quite as many honest people working for us?
Well, the function of the audit committee is to be comfortable that there are proper procedures in place, and this is to help you meet the audit committee members meet that charge.
I understand that totally, but again, we don't have any outside agency that would, whether it's the public authorities, to determine or certify that okay, this is appropriate. I know it's the policy. You guys, the policy is one thing. It's just it's my concern, and of course, listen, I'm playing devil's advocate here. I'm all about oversight. We could be as transparent we want in providing information, but who determines whether or not there isn't some sort of conspiracy of fraud going on within the 5 people that look at this thing or create it?
That's our independent.
I'm playing devil's advocate. I didn't know if we are required, based on how the statute was drafted, as to whether or not this internal report should be presented to another independent agency associated with the state of New York. That's all. I'm not criticizing the report. I'm criticizing. I'm not criticizing anything other than I'm just more or less saying, from an accountability standpoint or transparency, who should we be? This should be filed with, at a certain level, which, for their purposes. That's all. That's all I asked.
Right.
I know, Jeanette Jurassic, that yes, we're complying with whatever we're required to do. I was considering, well, what about a step further? Not that we're required to do it, but then, who oversees this internal report other than us?
Jeanette, I guess a question would be, is there even an office in, for example, the controller's office that would accept this report? So I guess is it our problem or is it the state's problem that they haven't asked for it and therefore there's nowhere for us to send it to?
Well, Fred, maybe it's a non-problem.
Yeah, no, it may be a non-problem. I'm just asking that to try to figure out.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know what we're required to do, but it appears to me, as someone has a lot of experience in government oversight, that
Right.
you would think that at some point this internal report would be required to be filed at a higher level. That's all. I'm not saying the report is wrong. I'm not saying that there is fraud. I'm just saying I would think that in the way of fiscal oversight or any sort of oversight, that we would be required to file it at a higher level. If that's not the case, I'm fine with that.
Jeanette?
What we're required to do, we're not required to file the report with a higher level. We are required to post internal control information on our website for the oversight, and that's what we do.
Yeah,
And then we
but
rely on our external auditors and our external audit with respect to the reporting of transactions.
okay, so let me go to the next question then, Jeanette, based on that.
Mhm.
Has our external auditors ever questioned our report? Have they ever reviewed it? Have they ever asked questions about it?
Maybe Claire Waldron can answer that question. She's involved with the audit at a detail that I am not.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just, this is an internal report. We're required to do it. We have outside auditors that take a look at this. I was just wondering if at any time during the outside audit from Lumsden and McCormick, did anybody ever inquire as to this report or any challenge to it?
Relative to the report, Claire Waldron, Controller, these
Hi,
reports
Claire.
that are issued annually, I don't believe that the auditors specifically have inquired. They do obviously opine on review internal controls, and relative to fixed assets this year, they always look at our fixed asset listing and making sure that we have an inventory. But the report itself, I think, kind of like as an internal control function at many places, the fact that the function exists and that somebody is reviewing it is a testament to the controls. But yes, it is internal controls and the function is done internally. I think it's a positive that the function is done as part of the audit, but it is not necessarily, the reports are not necessarily reviewed because the auditors do not opine on those reports.
Okay, so for the most part then, the answer is no. They have not, even though we say that they have the oversight, the answer is no. They normally have not reviewed the report.
No, they have the oversight on the financial statements and the process there.
Yeah.
I don't think they have oversight on our internal control reports.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Are there any additional questions for Bryce on the internal controls report? Hearing none, that ends our business. Is there any other business to be considered by the committee? Hearing none, I accept a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn, please.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 We stand adjourned.